afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, welcome. My name is Nadine Ondo, and I'm the Director of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. In attendance this afternoon is Randy Leong, the Cable Television Division Administrator, and DCCA staff from the Cable Television Division and DCCA Communications. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide the public an opportunity to submit testimony in person, virtually, or in writing on Hawaiian Telcom's application for renewal of its Oahu cable television franchise. We will give careful consideration to your testimony and any written testimony which has been submitted regarding Hawaiian Telcom's application. A notice of public hearing was published in the Star Advertiser newspaper on June 29, 2026, and again on July 6. Additionally, this notice was sent to various entities and individuals and posted on our Cable Television Division's website. A copy of this notice is also available on the table there. Okay. I will now briefly describe the procedure to be followed at this public hearing. Hawaiian Telcom will give a brief presentation of its application, and then we will commence with the public testimony portion of our hearing. Today, we are hearing both virtual testimony and in-person testimony. In-person testimony will be heard in the order of the sign-up sheet. If you wish to testify but have not signed up to present oral testimony at this hearing, please do so at this time. If you provide oral testimony today, you may also provide the substance of your testimony in writing by August 5, 2026, so that we may accurately review your comments. If you have written testimony to submit, but do not wish to present any oral testimony, please submit your written testimony to us before you leave the public hearing today or again by August 5, 2026. You may submit your written testimony by email to cabletv@dcca.hawaii, spelled out, .gov. When you are called to present testimony, please come to the table. We ask that you state your name, and if you represent a group, organization, or person, please state the name of the group, organization, or person whom you represent. Virtual testifiers should also state their name. If you represent a group, organization, or person, please state the name of the group, organization, or person whom you represent. Again, the purpose of this public hearing is to provide you with the opportunity to submit testimony, submit your oral and or written testimony regarding Hawaiian Telcom's application. We therefore will not be discussing your testimony during the public hearing or answering any questions that might be raised by your testimony at this time. This is not a forum for debate. In addition, comments on unrelated matters should not be submitted in this forum, nor will they be considered. As a courtesy to others, we ask that you please turn off your cell phones or any other device that could disrupt the public hearing. So I'm going to begin the hearing and calling up Steve Golden to present testimony on behalf of Hawaiian Telcom.
Aloha, Director Ando and members of the Cable Television Division and members of the public. I'm Steve Golden, Vice President of External Affairs for Hawaiian Telcom Services Company. And with me today is Shauna Russell, who is a product manager in our consumer market. You have my written testimony, so in the interest of time, I will try to summarize that. That's okay. Thank you to the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs for convening this public hearing, and mahalo to the community members who are participating today. Hawaiian Telcom appreciates the opportunity to present testimony in support of our application for renewal of the Oahu cable television franchise. Hawaiian Telcom launched its TV service on Oahu in 2011, and we filed a renewal application on April 17th of this year. Renewal of the franchise will ensure that Oahu residents continue to benefit from competition among the video service providers and retain access to a diverse range of programming. Hawaiian Telcom also appreciates the community outreach and stakeholder engagement conducted as part of the franchise renewal process. The Community Ascertainment Report for HTSC reflects valuable input regarding the evolving communications needs of Oahu. Hawaiian Telcom's Bioptics Plus TV service is delivered over a dedicated fiber-to-the-home broadband network and combines traditional television programming with popular streaming applications on a single platform. This service provides customers with a reliable alternative to traditional cable television. The service integrates live television channels with streaming services such as Netflix, Disney Plus, and YouTube. Renewal of the current franchise will preserve the important competitive choice for Oahu consumers. Competition benefits subscribers by encouraging providers to improve service quality, enhance customer service, invest in new technology, and deliver greater value to customers. Renewal of the franchise will also support continued investment in the facilities and infrastructure needed to provide reliable cable television service. Hawaiian Telcom remains committed to serving customers across Oahu and meeting its franchise obligations and investing in Hawaii's communications infrastructure. For these reasons, Hawaiian Telcom respectfully requests approval of its application for renewal of the Oahu cable television franchise. Mahalo for the opportunity to present this testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin the virtual testimony portion of this public hearing. And we have signed up for virtual testimony. First up would be Sean McLaughlin.
Aloha. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to testify virtually. I did have a question that I shared with the staff on the chat, which was what written testimony that's been submitted might be available for public review already. I'm aware of a couple of testimonies that have already been submitted in written testimony. Bill Sides did a consumer viewpoint, and a couple of state senators, I think, pointed out to some structural reforms that are needed in the process. So I don't know if those are available, and I know you said, Nadine, you weren't going to answer questions, but I wonder if you want to just say if written comments that are submitted already to DCCA will be available for the public before the August 5th deadline?
We will. This is Randy Leon, Cable Television Administrator. We will accept testimony, written testimony up to that date, which is August 5th. After that date, we will look to post that online on our website.
Okay, so we'll see that after the deadline. We won't see it before. Thank you.
Correct, after the deadline.
I just had 5 points that I'd like to point out. And first of all, I guess I want to congratulate Hawaiian Telcom for their progress in being a cable TV provider now statewide. And I think delivering channels in high definition is obviously a community benefit. I think the local management for Hawaiian Telcom has been responsive to our local community, so I want to endorse them. But I want to raise these 5 questions. One is, I hope that there would be in the franchise renewal opportunities for periodic legislative oversight and other reporting mechanisms to the public, like the Cable Advisory Committee convening, or the Division of Consumer Advocate and potentially participating to represent consumers who are otherwise unrepresented in these proceedings. I think the particular point I'd like to make about that is if we had more periodic oversight, we could address issues like network resilience that come up. I think Lahaina is our example of a tragedy that occurs when the design and regulation of the network are inadequate to protect the local community. So the communications failure, in my mind, is quite honestly a failure of the regulatory framework to plan ahead and to ensure that the design and resilience of that network was going to protect the people of Lahaina. So I hope you will take that in mind as part of the need for periodic review and legislative oversight. The second point I'd like to make is I wish there was more transparency in the ownership of the company. We think it looks like Hawaiian Telcom's operating it via Cincinnati Bell, owned by Macquarie, potentially sold to Nomura. We really don't know who the owners are of the infrastructure that we all rely upon at Hawaiian Telcom, and it seems like the regulator really ought to make sure that we do know that. So I hope that the DCCA will do a better job at reviewing the financials and making those more transparent to the public. For example, DCCA has set aside substantial funding for INET in the past. I don't know, is it 10 million? Is it 20 million? Can't tell. It hasn't been audited or really accounted for. So I think DCCA has some auditing to do of its own finances and obligations it's made. Now, those aren't Hawaiian Telcom obligations, those are charter obligations, so I do want to acknowledge that. But DCCA, what? I hope maybe that DCCA's handling of cable franchise benefits could be audited. My third point is that regulators really need to include meaningful opportunities for public participation and consumer advocacy. For example, a proposed decision in order when the cable division administrator recommends a decision in order to the director, that proposed decision really should be subject to public hearings and review. As a resident of Oahu, and I live in Honolulu, I would really like to see public hearings at every council district on the proposed decision in order. What does my council member, my city council member think of that? What is my neighborhood board's view of this? I don't see any of that in the process now. So hopefully we don't have to rely upon the state attorney general's presentations at the court in Maui that basically said that community involvement on Maui was counterproductive to the state's interests. Anyway, that's an open question to me. I'll move on. The fourth question is, bluntly, it really appears that the cable division is captive to industry, and there really is inadequate representation for consumers or the public. It's all been opaque up until this hearing. The timeline hasn't really been followed. There are really some open questions about the procedures that the DCCA has used for this. For example, has the Cable Advisory Committee been convened? Is there a decision in order pending? Where's the public hearings? If the DCCA doesn't have a mechanism for consumer representation built into the cable division, if there's no Cable Advisory Committee, then maybe the Division of Consumer Advocacy should be enlisted to help represent consumers at these proceedings. Also, county governments really should be granted standing in decisions and orders that impact their communities. And finally, I know this is, sorry if I'm boring you, but this last point is the community needs ascertainment. The report that was included with the application that apparently was contracted by the DCCA, not sure what the process was for finding the contractor or how the scope of services and the services were provided, but the resulting report is severely inadequate. It's really quite pathetic and kind of an embarrassment to state interests, honestly. For Oahu, I would hope that a community needs ascertainment would involve every neighborhood board, for example, to represent my local neighborhood. I want to know that the state is considered what are the island-wide interests, what are the citywide interests, what are the statewide interests. I don't see any of that in that report. I think, as the state senators point out to you, that you need to really look in that ascertainment at what are the public health and safety needs of our community, what are the education needs, what are the needs for community-based economic development, what are the culture and arts needs and the civic engagement needs. And DCCA, in this franchise renewal for cable television, has an opportunity to do the right thing. And really, I think Hawaiian Telcom is a good example of a potential partner to collaborate with the state and do more to benefit local interests. But for starters, I really hope that Hawaii can conduct a comprehensive community needs ascertainment and chart a path toward information equity and pono pilina, which is a more correct connection for people. My recommendation is that the DCCA make the franchise renewal term very short, so the state, in the meantime, can conduct a comprehensive community needs ascertainment and really review the conditions and requirements that the state puts on this level of a franchise. More than a decade of commitment of state resources to a private corporation that increases the value of that corporation. What does Hawaii get? That's my question to you as regulators. And I know you're not prepared to answer this now, but I hope that you will, and particularly in a proposed decision and order that is subject to public hearings. Thank you for your time and appreciate your attention. Aloha.
Okay. The second person who has signed in to testify virtually today is Robert Cortero. Is Mr. Cortero online? Oh,
He's connecting.
oh, okay.
Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Terrific. Aloha, Director Ando, Cable Television Administrator Leon, representatives of Hawaiian Telcom, those giving testimony and members of the DCCA Cable Television Division. My name is Robert Cortero. I'm a resident of Hawaiian Senior Residences in Iwalei, and I'm testifying as a private citizen. I submitted detailed written testimony previously for the record. My comments today are intended to briefly summarize the issue that I survived and to provide an opportunity for DCCA, Hawaiian Telcom, or anyone else if there's any questions. But my testimony is related to Hawaiian Telcom's Oahu franchise renewal because this proceeding allows DCCA to review provider availability, service gaps, public interest needs, and access to local communications. Here at Hawaiian Senior Residences, where I live, Hawaiian Telcom does not presently serve the building. And Spectrum appears to be the only building a connected wired internet and conventional cable provider. Free over-the-air broadcast access is also not practically available for many residents because building design, signal interference, and the physical obstructions prevent clean and reliable reception. The building currently lacks a shared rooftop antenna. It lacks a master antenna TV system or permanent over-the-air distribution pathway for each apartment. Residents are restricted from installing individual outdoor antennas, and an indoor antenna in my unit reliably receives only KHNL. So this is not only a personal inconvenience, but it's actually a serious financial and health burden. Hawaiiolo is home to many low-income, elderly, and disabled residents. Unreliable indoor over-the-air reception, no shared building antenna system, restrictions on outdoor antennas, and a limited control over building infrastructure, including limited provider choice, and the practical pressure to purchase paid services just to access local information that should otherwise be freely available over the air. This issue is largely invisible to people who do not live below the federal or state poverty levels or are not disabled. But for people who live with these daily limitations, and any Hawaii resident who spends substantial time at home, live local broadcasts, internet, and communication access affect emergency awareness, public health information, civic participation, cultural connection, recreation, and basic community continuity. So my testimony today, my request is limited. I'm asking the DCCA to include in the renewal record the building readiness and provider access problem affecting residents. In other words, unreliable indoor over-the-air reception caused by building design, signal interference, and physical obstructions, lack of a shared antenna or master antenna TV system or permanent OTA distribution pathway, restrictions on individual outdoor antennas, limited resident control over roof, riser, conduit, and inside wiring infrastructure, and really limited building connected provider choice. So I'm asking DCCA to consider how its franchise review and the public interest authority can support lawful coordination, provider availability, transparent disclosures, and future building code reform. I'm also respectfully asked that Hawaiian Telcom to support building code amendments requiring provider neutral pathways in future housing, and if available, to work with me or the public through its public relations or community relations department, so low-income residents, disabled residents, kupuna, or any vulnerable resident can better understand and select the best available communications and internet options befitting their personal circumstances. At least in our building, residents appear limited in choosing paid communications and internet services because there does not appear to be neutral infrastructure for a permanent OTA distribution pathway or neutral pathways for competing professional vendors. This is why I'm seeking a building code review so that future senior, affordable, subsidized, and multi-unit housing should not be constructed in a way that prevents practical over-the-air access or limits meaningful provider choice before residents even move in. So I'm not asking DCCA or Hawaiian Telcom to regulate matters reserved to federal law. For example, broadcast licensing, spectrum, retransmission consent, copyright, or cable carriage. So I submitted testimony on June the 19th, which provides a detailed explanation of my testimony, which includes the request letter to DCCA, a public fact sheet, a technical appendix, and a proposed review bill draft. So these materials explain my testimony today in detail. So in short, I'm respectfully asking DCCA and Hawaiian Telcom to use this renewal process to examine HSR or Halewai'olu's service gap, to support provider neutral infrastructure, to evaluate lawful transitional options for existing buildings, and help prevent this access gap from being built into future housing. So mahalo for the opportunity to testify. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that ends the list of testifiers who are going to be testifying virtually today. Is that right? Okay. So we will now move into in-person testimony. And as I understand it, we have an individual, S. Weiss, who is testifying here in person.
Can I just address you from here? Would that be all right if I address you from here?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, all right.
I'm not sure how,
She's on the camera.
oh yeah, you're on camera. You're okay.
I don't wish to upset the proceedings or worry anybody, but we don't have a ringer coming in on our phone, on a landline. And it's been that way since 2017. We turned in reports to the federal government, And the bandwidth that's being cut off in this region are landlines. When we asked a representative, couldn't the kupuna have a phone that could not be hacked? They responded, oh, we don't support landlines anymore. And it's true, all of the public phones are being taken out. They took the public phones out behind the police station, at the libraries. There's no phone even in the international marketplace. There is, in the disaster pamphlet for the news online, there's almost 98% are online only. In other words, there's no telephone number, even in the disaster section of the newspaper. The message is, don't pick up your phone because we're not supporting landlines. We think it's tracing to a European Union mandate that implied that all of America needed to be online by a certain date. Even people who cannot afford to do so. We're hoping for congressional hearings on phone and cable companies and retailers who are no longer in support of landline usage. For example, when they don't want any calls going out or coming in to a private residence, it's the denial of survival. When people's landlines are not even programmed in at the front and back door of that complex with 122 families, there's a problem. And this isn't just one complex, it's statewide. And the powerful people that are in control under a possible RET, real estate investment trust, that could be foreign and anonymous, all tax-free online. And so they don't care if we have bandwidth on our landlines, okay? So we need the telephone companies to begin to insure their kupuna and their families, impoverished families all over the state, to allow transmission of their phone lines. Because otherwise we're on a downward spiral in a state, as a state. Okay. So again, I intend no interruption or worry or disruption of the process. I don't seek to deny any license. I don't have an agenda fulfilled, except that I've wasted a lot of money on brand new landlines. And when we plug them in at that complex, they don't receive incoming calls. There are many homeless people we tried to house on the street and exchange telephone numbers. And with all, this is going way back 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, none of their phones were operational. They could not receive an incoming call. The tax-free gambling gangsters on the cable TV medium, they don't do, there's many channels dark on the digital underground. And they don't care if our phones are operational. But they're forcing America, the European Union is, we believe, with all due love and respect to them, they would force America into a cashless society. I tried to buy a Hawaiian Telcom landline for $16 with a check or cash, and they would not accept either. They wanted credit card only on their customer of 30 years. Something is wrong, and we need you to ensure transmission of bandwidth in this region, not take it away. Allow people to make a phone call if they're desperate in a disaster. Don't say get online. Because a lot of people can't afford the phones that they're selling from, Britain and Germany and the EU Union. There's a lot of people impoverished in America that are not allowed to receive incoming calls at all. And that's wrong, okay? So with that, I'll close. I pray a mighty blessing on this gathering, if you don't mind, and hope that good decisions are made in the future, that we don't have kupuna literally being denied the right to go onto the internet, being denied incoming calls, being denied the right of survival. It's not legal. None of it's legal. Telcom has every obligation to support national landline. Okay, and we expect that they will. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your testimony. I don't think we have anyone else who is signed up to testify either virtually or in person. So if not, if there's no one else who's here to provide any oral testimony at this time, we'll conclude the testimony in Hawaiian Telcom's application for renewal of its Oahu cable television franchise. Thank you very much for attending and participating in today's hearing. Public hearing is now adjourned.